Welcome along to the Eating for Body Type video coaching module. So look, in this one, we're actually going to be talking to you about how you can dial your nutrition in that a little bit further based on how your body is structured, because it's actually something which can be pretty important. And what we're looking to do is, as I said, help you get that nutrition a little bit more fine-tuned while still maintaining the fact that we don't want you to feel like you're on a diet. Okay, we want to help you to craft a lifestyle-based nutrition program. And what we're going to go through today is, so long as you've done okay on the level 1 stuff, this should literally just be a few tweaks which you'll be able to take from today's coaching, add that into your nutrition program, and actually start to gradually develop it so you can get that nutrition dialed in a little bit further, as we said. So, eating for your body type. Now, this is the basics we're going to go through today. There's also another more advanced option, which is where we actually talk about specific macronutrient breakdowns and kind of calorie intake. But for now, all we want you to do is kind of get a grip on the basics, okay? So look, different people respond differently to different levels, different ratios of the 3 macronutrients. Macronutrients being proteins, carbs, fats. An example of protein would be chicken, carbohydrate would be rice, fat would be olive oil. Okay, it's just basic examples there. Now, so some people actually get in great shape eating high carb and going low fat, whereas other people, if they were going high carb and low fat, would actually find their weight skyrockets. Other people on the flip side will actually tend to lose weight and lose fat by eating a higher fat, lower carb intake. Whereas other people could do the exact same ratio but end up low on energy, feeling tired, and maybe even gaining weight, or certainly not losing any. Okay, we've had people in the past who on a low carb diet, they really do lack energy and they just hate it. But then at the same time, we've had people who go onto a low carb diet with higher fats and their energy levels go through the roof. So people are different. And that's what we kind of want to get across in this coaching. And just as I said, to help you fine tune your nutrition just that little bit further. So look, there's 3 main body types. Okay, you've got an endomorph, which is on the left. We've got the mesomorphs in the middle, and the ectomorphs on the right. The mesomorphs are typically, bigger built, of the rounder variety, so to speak. Mesomorphs are generally the more muscular and more athletic. Then the ectomorphs are the people who are naturally lean. The ectomorphs are typically the person you refer to as that skinny bitch who can kind of put as much food away as she wants and never gains weight. Or when it comes to the blokes, it's usually the unhelpful boyfriend who sits there eating takeaways without gaining a single pound, while his poor girlfriend or wife is kind of eating a salad and not losing any weight. So, ectomorphs, these guys, and what I want you to do is, as we're going through these, just kind of have a think about which category you best fit into. Alright, so look, ectomorphs, people who are naturally thin, smaller bone structures, for example, people who like marathon runners, okay? These guys often have pretty fast metabolism, can tolerate a higher amount of carbohydrate than most people, with a moderate fat and a moderate protein intake. So, these skinny people are typically more tolerant to carbohydrates than someone who is larger, so the endomorph, for instance. The endomorphs, moving on to them, pretty much the opposite to ectomorphs. They've got larger bone structure, heavier, typically carrying more body fat, and will generally have a slower metabolism as well, like a lower metabolic rate. Generally going to have a greater tendency to store body fat. Okay, typically endomorphs will go much better if they're going lower carb, with a reasonable amount of fat and a good amount of protein in their diet. Eating too much carbohydrates for these guys is often going to be a big error in terms of fat loss. So if you are more in the endomorph category, it's typically it's really, really important for you to kind of monitor your carbohydrate intake and make sure we're not kind of eating too much of it, for instance, because generally it's not going to be the greatest thing for most. The mesomorphs, these are the ones we all want to be typically. These guys are naturally more muscular, medium-sized frame, and more athletic, higher lean body mass, so muscle, for instance. If you think about a sprinter, and you're not far off what a mesomorph would look like. Now, generally, these guys will find it easier to gain muscle and find it easier to maintain a pretty low body fat as well. Gymnasts, again, would be another prime example of a typical mesomorph. High protein, moderate carb, moderate fat approach to nutrition typically works pretty well. These guys are relatively going to be relatively tolerant to carbohydrates as well, similar to the ectomorphs there. So look, if you don't fit into any one category, which chances are you probably don't, it's not a problem. Very few people will fall into one category. Okay, myself, I would be a cross between a ectomorph and a mesomorph, for instance. So look, if you look at someone, you might think they're in whatever category because of how they look right now. Whereas in actual fact, they may well be in a totally different category, and they've either A, trained their ass off to look like a Greek goddess or god, or they've let their lifestyle slide and now look more like they fit into a different category. Okay, so that's kind of something to kind of note there. All right. In actual fact, that most people are going to be a cross between the two somatotypes, kind of like I said there about with myself. All right. You should, however, just about be able to see or have an idea about which category most fits you. Some people are going to be ectomesomorphs, okay, so that's like myself, so athletic but still a bit on the thin side. Some people are going to be endomesomorphic, so heavy muscular build yet still carrying that extra body fat around the middle. But the key thing, don't get too bogged down what type you are. Okay, it's really just a tool for us to start to determine your starting macronutrient breakdown. So how much carbohydrate, protein, and fat you need as an individual, and this is basically going to give us our starting point. And what we want to do is, as I said, dial it in a bit further as we go down the line. Because what we want to do here, as I said, is help you create your lifestyle-based nutrition. So generally, if someone wants to prioritize losing fat, we'll start them off based on eating like an endomorph. So eating like a higher fat, lower carbohydrate, or certainly controlled carbohydrate intake with a decent amount of protein in their diet as well. Someone wants to gain muscle, we'll start them off eating based as if they were a mesomorph. Someone wants to enhance their endurance performance or their training for that sport, we'll generally start them off eating as if they're an ectomorph. So with a higher carbohydrate intake and then moderate fat and moderate protein. So look, this is the basic estimates for each somatotype there, okay? So if you want, you can just pause the presentation, just have a little look on there as well. We're basically giving you the characteristics, the typical goals of that individual, and then we can look at the suggested macronutrient breakdown. So for instance, for an endomorph or someone looking to lose body fat, for instance, protein wants to be around 35%. Carbohydrate around 25% of intake, and a suggested fat intake around about 40% of calories coming from fat. So this is one of the reasons why, if you look at a lot of people who are trying to lose weight and still looking at doing a low-fat diet, buying all the low-fat products, this is why a lot of the time they're actually not going to be losing the weight they want to, because they really do need to be having a higher fat intake and less carbohydrate, for instance. So look, now you've hopefully had a little look at which somatotype best fits you, and kind of can collaborate that with your goals as well. For instance, there's a couple of ways we can use the information. Now, option one, which is what we're going to go through today in this module, is the basic portion control and macronutrient manipulation. Option two is a more detailed portion control macro manipulation, and we use a specific calorie and macronutrient calculator for that one. So we're not worrying about that one to start off with, because what we want to do is basically help you to get it dialed in the simple way first off, before we start looking at any of that other stuff. Okay, and we don't want to overcomplicate anything as well. So look, on this basic option, what we're going to do is use your approximate portion sizes as opposed to specific calorie tracking, in order to make sure that you're eating just about the right breakdown of carbs, proteins and fats. And it's pretty simple, and all we're going to need is your hand, okay, when it comes to portion sizing. So we're going to have a little look at the table in a moment, and once we've done that, just have a little look at the extra stuff we're going to talk you through as well. So look, as an ectomorph, if you're a bloke, you've got your macronutrient split there, about 55% carbs, 25% protein, and about 20% fat. Okay, so high carb, low to moderate fat, and pretty moderate protein. And we've got the portion size there as well. So 2 palms of protein-dense food, 2 fists of vegetables, about 3 cupped handfuls of a carb-dense food, and 1 thumb-dense fatty food. Okay, so sorry, one thumb of fat-dense food. That's a correct word. I should have said that for you there. And that's basically how a typical meal should look for an ectomorph there. Okay, for a female, it's same breakdown, but slightly different in terms of the portions there. So in terms of the portions there, if you open your hand out, if you have a look where your palm meets your fingers, chop your fingers off, chop your thumbs off, and that's pretty much what you're looking at in terms of a palm of protein food there, okay? That's what we're looking at. So, you're looking at pretty much a chicken breast or thereabouts, or a reasonable sized steak. When it comes to the fat, we do that on thumbs, so if you just kind of were to chop your thumb off, then that's going to give you just about what we're looking for in terms of like a fatty dense food. Fats being like oils, avocados, those sorts of things. For mesomorphs, so the more muscular people, this is what we're looking at. About 40% carbs and then 30% protein, 30% fat. Again, same for men and women. And again, we've just got the portion sizes there. If we're looking at the vegetables, if you clench your hand, make a fist, that's one fist full of vegetables. Okay, so if you've got veggies which will pretty much match out to about the size of your fist, then that's great. And we've got 2 portions of that for the blokes and then 1 for the women. In terms of carbohydrates, if you open your hand out and cup it, then you've just got, if you imagine like having a handful of rice in there cooked, then that's a cupped handful of a carb dense food, okay? And we've already gone through the fat there as well. For the endomorphs, okay, this is the split here. So we've got less carbohydrates, so about 25%, pretty moderate to high protein at 35%, and relatively high fat there, about 40%. And again, we've got the basic portion sizing there for you as well. So look, this is going to involve a little bit of trial and error. You're not likely to get it perfect straight away, and it's just important to kind of just work through the process, as opposed to kind of trying to get bogged down with making everything or wanting everything to be perfect from the start, because it's highly unlikely that will happen, because nothing's an exact science. So if after a couple of weeks your body's not doing what you want it to do, i.e. in terms of performance or changing shapes, you're not losing fat if that's what you want to do, or you're not gaining muscle if that's what you want to do, what we want to do is we want to reassess what you're doing and make some slight adjustments to the macronutrient breakdown. So it might need that you need to increase your carbohydrates, decrease them, maybe increase your protein intake, maybe not getting enough fat on board, maybe just need to play around with the split there. So that's what we want to have a look at in a couple of weeks' time based on how you're getting on. If in a couple of weeks' time your results are going as you want them to go, then you can be pretty safe to say that right now it's a pretty good strategy for you to do. So it's important to pay close attention to your body, how things do move along, and how you feel as well, because you don't want to you don't want your nutrition plan to be something which means you're lacking in energy or just feeling crap. So we need to make sure we kind of work with you to get that dialed in as well. So look, if you're pretty tolerant to carbohydrates, such as ectomorphs, you're likely going to be okay to eat a reasonable amount of carbs outside of your training window, so with other meals other than your post-workout meals. So by all means, if you have the leaner variety there, you're good to spread your carb intake pretty evenly throughout the day in your 3, 4, 5 meals, however often you eat. So if you're moderately tolerant to carbs, such as our mesomorphs, you'll pretty much eat the bulk of your carbs in and around training, so pre and post workout, and then a moderate intake of carbohydrate with the rest of your meals. So you don't have to go bonkers with carbs for most of your meals. And as I said, the bulk of your carbohydrate intake will still come in before and after training there. For those of you guys who are less tolerant to carbs, so the endomorphs, you guys will want to eat most of your carbs in and around training. The rest of your meals then want to be loaded up more so with veggies, a little bit of fruit, as opposed to starchy carbs like rice, pasta, breads, potatoes, and all stuff like that. So most of your starchy carbs certainly want to come in that post-workout window typically. So don't be scared of eating quality fats. We've already had a look at the importance of that briefly, particularly if you're more in the endomorph category, okay? So you guys really do need to make sure you're getting a good amount of quality fats in your diet, okay? It really is important. So stick to the ratios we've started you off with there and just see how you get on. You do need to get quality fats in your diet, so don't think about sacking it off and trying to go low fat, because as we already said, chances are that's not going to help. Fat is massively important as from a hormonal perspective as just one thing, okay? It's in particular of importance with like your anabolic hormones, so your building hormones, okay? The things you need to enhance your metabolism, or some of the things you need. Aim to shoot for a bit less fat in your post-training feed as well. Okay, one of the reasons something like a shake is a great way to get your food down after you've had training, because you can literally just chuck in a bit of protein, some sort of carbohydrate like a banana, or like sweetened almond milk or something, and then you're going to be onto a pretty much a winner there. In terms of protein, try and split your proteins relatively evenly throughout the day. So from food sources which are complete protein, so things like meats, fish, eggs, stuff like that is all great. Meat eaters, most of your food's going to be from complete protein sources anyway, but people who are veggies, you're going to need to make sure you're getting a variety of incomplete proteins in order to make sure that you're getting enough in. So foods like, combining foods like, pulses and beans is a pretty good way to make sure you've got a complete amino acid profile, which basically means it's going to be easier and more readily available for your body to actually utilise the nutrients there. It is, of course, important to make sure that you fuel your body predominantly with healthy, wholesome foods. Okay, so don't take a KFC as your high-fat intake if you're in the endomorph. Okay, so stick pretty much religiously to the following habits, which we've already gone through in the level 1 nutrition, and you're not going to go too far wrong. As we said, hopefully you're already doing those 6 things already, and this is really going to help you. What we've gone through today should be helping you dial things in just that little bit further. So those habits were: eat slowly, stop at 80% full, eating protein-dense foods with every meal, eating veggies with every meal. For fat loss, remember the bulkier carbs after training, particularly if you are the endomorph there, or even the mesomorph as well. Healthy fats daily, and ensure the majority of your diet is coming from single ingredient foods as well. About 80 to 90% wants to be single ingredient, wholesome, natural, healthy foods. Other stuff, plenty of water every day. Around 2 to 4 litres is standard for most people. If you're a bit bigger, then obviously a bit more. If you're a bit smaller, maybe down to the lower baseline, 2 litres there. Greens drink dailies are pretty good in order to help top up your intake of quality micronutrients. We actually use lean greens as a favoured one down here. If you want a bit of information on that, then hit us up and we can talk to you about that one. A fish oil supplement's a good thing. Around 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of that throughout the day is plenty. Aliment Nutrition, they do a really good quality one, and we use one from Phil Richards Performance as well in terms of a fish oil supplement. In terms of caffeine, if you want a couple of cups of green tea before midday, go for it. Or if you want an organic coffee before midday, then go for it. Pre-workout's a pretty good time if you're a coffee lover. Other than that, I generally tell people to stay clear of caffeine most of the time. Bottom line, with caffeine, if you're having like a cup of coffee a day, then great. Or every couple of days, then fine. If you're slamming back, 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee a day, then we do need to address that. Want to rotate your meat and veggie choices to make sure you're getting a decent amount of variety in there, and sleep is super important for your success. So, like we spoke about before, do your best to get to bed, lights out by around 10:30, as many nights of the week as you can. Okay, maybe it's not going to be possible every single night. Don't stress it. But if you go to bed at 11:30 every single night of the week, and you have just, you improve just 2 nights sleep for an extra hour, then that's going to make a big difference. So, marginal gains is better than no gains, absolutely. The next thing is don't overcomplicate it. Okay, so literally take what we've gone through today, relate it to yourself, and then just do the basics. So it might mean that you just need to add a little bit more fat and a bit less carbs to your diet. It might mean that you need to start having a bit more protein in your diet. So if right now you're only eating it with 2 meals a day, you then need to make sure you're getting it in with that extra 3rd or 4th meal a day, for instance. Okay, so don't overcomplicate it. All the slides are downloadable on the coaching website, so by all means you can have a read through there as well. So that in terms of quality carb choices, I won't go through these, but you can obviously pause it and have a look, and then the download's available for you guys as well. So we've got quality carb choices there. Quality carb replacement. So for instance, if you're needing to have a lower carb meal, but you still want it to be as if you're eating the carbohydrate in terms of how your meal feels and looks, then these are great things that you can do. Now, quality higher fat protein choices. Okay. So we've got there, it's got some oily fish, eggs, stuff like that. And then we've got quality lower fat protein choices as well. So more like white fish, egg whites, white bits of chicken, white bits of turkey. Quality fat choices. So again, you've got a little list there for you guys. And then some recommended veggies. Obviously, you can have whatever veggies you want, but there's just a few of the favourites there. Greens are great. This is the bottom line of a lot of that. Cruciferous vegetables are an absolute winner for sure. So look, here's what to do next. I definitely recommend reread or rewatch this presentation. Then start getting your meals planned out. There's meal planners on the website for you, so you can just find one of those and start to plan your meals out. It might be that you literally take your old meal plan and just adapt it a bit more to have a bit less carbs, or a bit more carbs, or a bit more fat, or a bit less fat, or a bit more protein, a bit less protein, okay? Based on what we've gone through today. If you want a bit more help with it, then bang a meal plan over to andysloanpa@gmail.com, or even better, upload it into the coaching group. Okay, and after that, go kick some ass, get the body and lifestyle you want, and just work with us to help you to create that as well. So if you need a bit of help, as I said, pipe up in the coaching group, and we can look after you and just help you dial it in that bit further. So I hope this has been super helpful for you guys. And any questions, as I said, get them in the Facebook group, and we'll talk real soon. Bye bye.